Mayor, would you like to begin?
Yes, please.
Good evening. This is the meeting of the Borough Council, Highlands Mayor and Council regular meeting on Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. The notice requirements provided for in the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied. Notice of this meeting was properly given by transmission to the Asbury Park Press and the Two River Times and by posting at the Borough of Highlands Municipal Building and filing with the Borough Clerk all on January 1st, 2023. Items listed on this agenda are subject to change. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now do roll call. Councilmember Cervantes.
Here.
Councilmember Chart.
Here.
Councilmember Melnick.
Here.
Council President Chesky.
Here.
Mayor Brion.
Here.
We have a quorum. First, that's not on the agenda. We're going to do a oath of office.
Come on, Robert. Will you repeat after me? I, Robert Avatar,
I, Robert Alvarez,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and this state,
and the state,
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and the governments
and the governments
established in the United States
established in the United States
and this state
and the state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all of the duties of patrolman.
perform all the duties of patrolman.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, absolutely.
We're gonna take a few pictures for the drizzle outside.
Oh, okay, no worries, no worries. Can you get one of my husband?
Hey, Mother, give me your camera.
Get one of my husband?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Hold on. Maybe come in the back.
Congratulations.
Next, we have approval of minutes, February 15, 2023, meeting minutes.
I'll offer them. I'll second.
Mayor seconded.
Yes.
Councilmember Cervantes.
Abstain.
Councilmember Tlack.
Yes.
Councilmember Melnick.
Yes.
Council President Chesky.
Yes.
Mayor Brion.
Yes.
Motion carries to approve February 15, 2023 meeting minutes. Next, we have February 15, 2023 executive session minutes.
I'll offer them. I'll second.
Councilmember Cervantes.
Yes.
No, you need to abstain.
I'm sorry. Abstain, yes, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Tolet.
Yes.
Councilman Melnick.
Yes.
Council President Chesky.
Yes.
Mayor Brion.
Yes.
Motion carries to approve February 15, 2023 executive session minutes. Next, we have introduction of proposed ordinances. O-2303, amending Chapter 7, Schedule 1, no parking of the Code of the Borough of Highlands relating to areas of no parking on Valley Street.
I'll offer. Okay, I was also just gonna say, I'll second it, and what that is, just for areas that are surrounding, the first aid squad.
Councilmember Cervantes.
That's a yes.
Councilman Tolet.
Yes.
Councilman Melnick.
Yes.
Council President Chesky.
Yes.
Mayor Brion.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass ordinance O-2303 on first reading with a public hearing to be held on March 15, 2023. Next, we have O-2304, authorizing the private sale of Block 101, Lot 3.03 in the Borough of Highlands, State of New Jersey, pursuant to NJSA 40A:12-1 et sec.
I'll offer it.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Cervantes.
Yes.
Councilmember Tolet.
Yes.
Councilman Melnick.
Yes.
Council President Chesky.
Yes.
Mayor Brion.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass ordinance O-2304 on first reading with a public hearing to be held on March 15, 2023. Next, we have other business. Environmental Commission presentation.
Okay, my name is Bob Zielinski, and I've been on the Environmental Commission for about a year now. And Steve, our chairman of the committee, asked me to look into this HAT study, which is New York, New Jersey Harbor and Tributary Study. And okay, let's go through a timeline here first. This goes back to 1990, where there was authorization to look at storm damage in the Raritan Bay area. And in 2003, the study did not go anywhere because of lack of interest. And again, this might have been an unfortunate thing that there was a lack of interest at that point in time. If you look at feasibility study started in 2000. Like I said, it was for the whole area. It was stalled because of lack of interest. Then we all know what happened in 2012. We had Storm Sandy hit the area and devastate Highlands and so many communities along New York and New Jersey. That prompted Public Law 113-2, the Sandy Bill. And this was designed to reevaluate how best to protect the New York Harbor and Bayshore area. In 2015, there was a public meeting in the Highlands with the Corps of Engineers, and this was after they did the review of ways to mitigate storm and rise in sea level protection for the Highlands. And right after that, in 2016, is when this HAT study started. In 2020, the Highland study was updated, and in 2022, last summer, the Congress passed the infrastructure bill, and this gave funding for the Highlands project. And it's $130 million that they've allocated to the Highlands for working on and doing infrastructure to help protect the Highlands for rising sea level and storm surge. And final is this year on March 7th, the Corps of Engineers wants final public comments on this HAT study, the Harbor and Tributary Study. All right, just a basic map here, a lot of general information here, but on this I wanted to point out where the study area is. So the colors here are indicating where this HAT study is, And again, I think you all know kind of we are located in the lower Bay Area, the red kind of right down here. Okay. All right, so what is the HAT study doing? Well, they are looking at 9 focus areas, and our area is the largest out of all 9. It is 2,150 square miles, has 900 miles of shoreline, and about 16 million people live in this area. And in the study, they estimated that 275,000 structures would be permanently damaged because of a medium storm surge case. And they've also estimated that for 100-year storm damage, it would be at $100 billion of damage. And for a medium sea level case, and for their higher projection, that number even goes higher to $350 billion of damage. So there's a lot of reason why the federal government has put money into studying this, because the damage in this area would be immense. Again, 16 million people would be affected. Okay, so what is the study of the HAT study, and kind of where are they right now? Well, they've evaluated 6 cases. Case number 1, do nothing. And that one is funded already. Number 2 is a storm barrier across the harbor entrance from New York to New Jersey. So it would go from Sandy Hook across to Long Island. Case 3A is more local storm barrier surges to protect certain areas. The case that the Corps of Engineers is evaluating and kind of right now recommending is 3B. And this is storm surge barriers both in the Northern Bay. And again, I'll show you a map of that and kind of what our thoughts are on their so far recommended case. 4 is one single storm surge barrier, and then these are mostly land-based systems in conjunction with that one storm barrier. And 5 is no storm surge barriers, just land-based systems. And as I said, they're recommending 3B now based on their cost-benefit analysis. They're asking for public feedback, and us in the Environmental Committee feel that we want to present this to you because we have some recommendations as to what we feel is the best case. We're not looking at economics, we are looking at what serves Highlands the best. Okay, so again, the status, Corps of Engineers right now is looking to recommend 3B. This protects only 63% of the entire HATS area. Protects, and it leaves 37%, and really most of that is in the Low Bay area, the Raritan area, and down here to the Highlands, the Bayshore, and even upriver, up to Shrewsbury and Navesink River. So what they're recommending does not directly protect us. And our feeling is if they do this 3B, if you're putting surge barriers up north, that water's coming in, and where's it going to go? If it's blocked to the north, there's only one place for it to go, and that's going to be south. So we are concerned that the case they're looking at will make any storm worse for us in the Highlands and in the South Bay area. You know, irrespective of which case they look at, Highlands still needs to install our own storm mitigation systems. And this is protection for all of the cases. And as I said earlier, the federal government has approved $130 million has been funded by the feds. So we are asking the Borough Council to consider this, and we'd like them to, as the Borough of Highlands, submit comments to the Corps of Engineers as to what we feel our recommendation is to best protect the Highlands. Okay, here's a map. Again, the Sandy Hook area, the Raritan Bay, Staten Island, Long Island here, Manhattan there. So the cases they're looking at is the alternative 2, which would be, barrier reinforcing along Seabright, Sandy Hook, a barrier across the harbor entrance, and then going up into Long Island. And that's alternative 2. Alternative 3A has, and that's blue, so there would be a barrier from the Highlands over to Sandy Hook to protect part of the Highlands and upstream. And again, the other part of the Highlands would need to be use shore-based systems to protect the rest of the Highlands. A barrier there, blue up there, and then blue across here. So again, 3A would again protect a lot of the area, would not be protecting this area directly, and everyone there would have to use their own systems. The term of 3B, you can see where they put their storm barriers in this yellowish color. Barrier there, barrier through here, some barriers up there. So we are concerned that if they close all of this off, the water's coming in, and where's it going to go? It's going to come down here in our area and make storm surge and flooding worse. And 4, again, you can see there's kind of a barrier through here and one there, less than what they have at 3B. All right, let's look at 2. Again, a lot of numbers here. I want to have you focus on 1 or 2 things. First thing is, this study protects, if you do alternative 2, which is a barrier through here, over there, it protects 96% of the entire area, for storm surge and, combined with rise in sea level. It is the most expensive. It's $150 billion to do, and it takes 32 years to build. And we feel this might skew the economics based on how the Corps of Engineers is evaluating their cost-benefit analysis. I think that's kind of it. Oh, just color-wise, if it's green here, it's protected. And this barrier here would be, they'd have entrances on the shipping channels, and then there'd be barriers which would basically be up, so fish and wildlife can go underneath it. When a storm comes, and this is major storms, they're not going to do it for very local flooding, those barriers will go down, they'll close the gates, and this whole area will be sealed off. Okay, next. All right, here's just kind of a look at part of this area, and you can see where the Highlands is at. And so they reinforce the seawall here, the barrier would start here and go over. All these little green dots are, would be local levees, dunes, etc., and these would be needed for the Highlands to protect non-major flooding events. So these barriers are going to be used for major storm events, but again, Highlands being at the elevation that we're at, we still need to protect our area for smaller flooding, for flooding that we see, a few times a year. And again, $130 million has been approved for our project by the federal government. Okay, this is alternative 3A. This one, again, protects 87% of the area. So again, all the green areas, the areas that are not necessarily protected are in red. And there, I'll show you next slide, barrier is going to go from the Highlands across to Sandy Hook. And again, that helps protect all the upstream areas on the Navesink and Shrewsbury. This one takes 24 years to construct. All right, so here's alternative 3A. In simplified terms, with a large dune levee would be here, medium dune levees would be here, and then there'd be a storm surge barrier here. And again, that would close off when storm surge comes in and, protect here and everything upriver. But again, down in this area, again, if it's not a major storm, again, we feel that we still need local storm mitigation systems in the Highlands. Okay, this is alternatives 3B, and this is the one that Corps of Engineers has tentatively selected. So if you can see there's barriers here, barriers there, and just notice where all the red color is. Going from Staten Island, Raritan Bay, down to the Highlands, down to Shrewsbury, Navesink rivers. Again, this protects only 63% of the area. And again, as I said earlier, we feel that you close these northern barriers here, that water has to go somewhere, and it could make our flooding worse. On this, we definitely need local storm-based systems on land for the islands to protect us. Again, this is the cost projections, and again, 2 is the one that is the big storm barrier. Of note here, that's going to take a long time, 32 years to build, cost of $150 billion. 3A, which again protects the highlands and has the storm surge barrier going across from the highlands, takes 24 years and is $96 billion. Their preferred case, 3B, it takes 14 years, and they, on their benefit analysis, are giving it 50 years. So again, we feel case 3A and 2 are penalized because of their economics. The way they run it is they have a limit of 50 years of benefits. So again, we feel the economics and cost benefit might be incorrect in hurting case 2 and 3A. Again, case 4, again, that would be 62 billion. Case 5 is 25 billion. And again, case 1 is free. It's not going to do anything as it is. Yeah.
Can let's get through the whole thing and then we can come back to questions?
I'll forget the question.
Okay, this was their projected average annual cost, and again, 2, they're saying 5 billion, but we have an issue with this too. 2 is protecting 96% of the area, and the annual cost is 5 billion, and the average benefit is 4.6. So really not much of a cost benefit there. Their case on 3B, it's 2.6, and you have $6.3 billion in benefit. You're only protecting 63% of the area with this, with 3B, and 96 with 2. So we don't understand why the benefit is so low for 2, because you're protecting a higher area. Okay. And again, this was just a slide I kind of showed, and what I've done here is I've said, that doesn't make sense. If you're protecting more area, you should have more benefit. So I just did a ratio of the areas protecting, and 3B, that's kind of the base case. So you're protecting 50% more area under 2. So that should boost your area of your benefit of protection, up from 4.6 to 7. Then, as I said earlier, if you look at the 50-year benefit, if you're hurting case 2 and 3A, then if you give it out to 50 years, you should have additional, benefit there. So I've tried to normalize that, different than what their annual benefit here, based on the benefit of how much area you're protecting and the time it takes to build, which is, again, we feel it's penalizing case 2. Okay, the coastal storm risk management study for the Highlands was started in 2000, updated in 2015 and 2020. And again, this is from the 2015 report. They looked at alternatives too. And these alternatives are different than what was, obviously the HAT study. And they had non-structural plans, offshore closure plan, and I think this is similar to case 3A in the HAT study. Beach and dune plan, hybrid plan, and they've selected one of the hybrid plans. This is a map from their 2015 report, and so they feel this design, there's only 1% chance of having it kind of breached in 400-year flooding storm surge event. But, you know, basically you're putting levees and dunes, et cetera, across here. Let's go to the next one. So here's another map, and I think the more updated, which shows the basin area. So hard to see the brown, but the basin area here, drainage from this area comes down here. So that's basin 1. Basin B kind of comes up all the way through here and down through here. And basin C is up through here. Oh, wow, that's better. Thank you. So again, just the different basins and kind of where they're putting pump stations, diversion culvert there. And again, this is where the storm reduction measures would be, you know, obviously along the coast. Yep. Okay. Do you need me to speak into the mic?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
I don't need it. Used to. Okay, well, thank you, Bob. I'm Steve Zalecki, the chair of the Environmental Commission in town, and I'm going to take us through the next few slides. And then Bob and I, after the council has a chance to ask questions, I understand the mayor's going to open it up to the audience. So Ken and others, if you have questions, would be happy to try to answer them for you. So the next few slides really talk about what are the current conditions and risks for Highlands as it relates to major storm events and flooding. And so we do have issues with periodic dry day, as it's often referred to, dry day flooding, associated with full moon, high tide, and storm water coming up through the storm drain system. So that's our current issue. We're unprotected for these things, though I give a lot of credence to the council for spending time and money and effort on upgrading the stormwater systems in town, the basins, which I think is, crucial to the overall effort. So, those are current risks. Future risks are really about how things are evolving. And one of the most concerning of these future risks are sea level rise. So just a matter of simple numbers, we've gained almost a foot of sea level rise in the last 100 years. And we're anticipated to see another foot, or perhaps more in the next 25 years. So you can see how we're having a great deal of acceleration in sea level rise. And if there are, the sea level rise estimate of a foot in about 25 years is based on melting of glaciers, thermal expansion of the seas as temperatures rise. It doesn't account for glacial collapse. So there's a lot of land-based glaciers in Antarctica. Thwaites Glacier, for instance, is sitting on land, but it's backed up by a point in the ocean, in the Antarctic Ocean, that's holding that glacier back. The problem is that that glacier is melting from below and above. And at some point, it's going to give way. And when that glacier gives way, it's going to proceed into the ocean. And just like dropping a cube of ice into a glass of water, the level rises. Well, that's what will happen. And in that case, it could be a half a foot or more over a really short period of time. And this could happen at any moment, but not unlikely in the next 10 years. So that would be on top of these estimates. And these continue. When you look out 50 years and 75 years, we're looking at more like 2 or 3 feet of overall sea level rise. So that's important when we sit so low and so close to sea level as it is. The other thing that comes along with some of the issues of climate are, as temperatures are warmer, there's more energy in the atmosphere, which creates more intense storms, and also more occurrence of these intense storms. So heat in the atmosphere drives storm generation and increases their intensity. So, you've heard a lot about carbon dioxide levels and other greenhouse gases. I didn't want to take that route, but I thought I'd share some very recent details with everyone. And this is called warmest February ever, and that's what we've just come through. And these statistics are very fresh. So, and we know this stuff just from looking around, right? But here's a few examples. In Charleston, West Virginia, in 100 years, they only hit 80 degrees in February 3 times. But in the last 4 or 6 years, they've hit 80 degrees in February. 80 degrees is their normal temperature in June. But here we're seeing it happen on a regular basis in February. The Great Lakes are reporting the lowest record of ice cover. It should be the highest in February, but we're seeing the lowest. And this is a trend that's been reported since 1973. 73% reduction in overall ice cover in the last 45 years or so. Vermont's Lake Champlain, just last week and a half ago, they canceled a fishing tournament because 3 fishermen fell through the ice and died. You think maybe that's not the wisest thing for these fishermen to be on this ice. But who would have thought that a lake in Vermont in February, you'd have to be concerned about how thick the ice is. But that's the fact of the matter. So here in the Northeast, we've now experienced the fastest warming of all regions in the country. Probably some of you have seen already plants popping up. I know I have. In February, I've seen 10-inch daffodils already up out of the ground. This is incredibly unusual, and it's not just here, it's throughout the country in the colder climates. And early blooms like this, whether they're just for our pleasure, horticultural type of plantings, or crops, bloom out, a second freeze comes in spring, and these flowers and crops are damaged, and production yields go down. It's true for apples and other produce that we produce here in New Jersey. So there's that side of things as well. We all, I think, speak about how it's nice to have these mild winters, right? Don't have to put the coat on as much, don't have to shovel snow. I didn't lift my shovel up once this year. I don't know about, how frequent that is, right? To have a whole winter at this point where we didn't even lift the shovel. But it's not normal, it's wreaking havoc, this type of change. And what we're also seeing is ticks, mosquitoes, stink bugs, other insects that are not dying off because we're not having the deep cold temperatures that we would normally have in the winter months. And as a result, the numbers are exploding. So here and around the world, these things are occurring. But we can see it with our own eyes. And that should get all of our attention. So, I just want to take a second to differentiate. There's 2 projects that Bob spoke about or speaking about in this presentation. One is the project that was conceived and engineered for Highlands that Bob explained started in an early study back in the 90s and has evolved a bit over the years. It picked up a lot more steam after Superstorm Sandy, and that's the project that is funded at $130 million. The other project is the HATS project. That's a larger project that Army Corps undertook for the entire New York, New Jersey harbor area. So this is really more specific about the traditional long-standing project here in Highlands. So what would be the benefit of this? Well, it gives us protection from major storms, protect us from sea level rise, lower insurance costs, flood insurance costs. For a long time, the National Flood Insurance Program wouldn't consider fixed levies and dunes in terms of adjusting rates for different communities. But they have since changed that policy. So to the extent there is permanent structures in place to minimize flooding, it will have a positive effect on our flood insurance rates. This concept, this third bullet about avoid difficulty in selling your house, is a concept that's developing more and more called mortgage reluctancy, where banks are reluctant to give mortgages in areas where they see too great a risk for their money, right? Unfortunately, you don't own your house until you pay your mortgage off. Until then, in fact, the bank does and has a vested interest in what happens. So in communities that are more worse off than we are, certainly, like Norfolk, Virginia. In Norfolk, people are paying anywhere between $800 and $1,000 a month for their flood insurance. And they're having difficulty now selling their homes because mortgage companies do not want to provide a mortgage for the property. So this is not us at the moment, but it could be us down the road. Moving on, avoid damage to property and vehicles. Increase the value of our homes. People are more interested in buying in an area where they don't feel they have to worry about flooding concerns, right? And that assurance helps bolster home values. Encourage businesses to locate here by reducing the risk they have to their investment. You know, I always say, if I had $500,000 to invest, will I do it in Highlands or will I do it in Atlantic Highlands or somewhere else where they don't have the same flooding risks that we do? And I think that's just a matter of business. Obviously, there are businesses here, and I don't want to suggest that that's not wise of them. But certainly, if we want to attract more businesses, we have to make it friendly for them to want to invest and feel like they're doing it in a secure way. We've said a number of times about money that's already been allocated for this project. And then finally, this concept or issue or point about securing FEMA funding for future damage. FEMA has made it clear that in areas where communities do not make the efforts that are afforded to them to bolster, to harden, to protect their communities with projects that are made available to them, they're going to be reluctant to fund future damages because it's their feeling those could have been avoided to a large extent. So there's that concern as well going forward. I think that does it. Yeah. Okay. Somebody turn the lights on.
So I'll start off by saying, what is your recommendation?
So we've circulated comments. So what is pressing right now is that the Army Corps of Engineers for the HATS program, that's the larger program that affects the whole New York, New Jersey Bay Harbor area. Those comments are due by March 7th. So our hope is, and concern is that the council would forward those comments to the Army Corps. And they deal with only the HATS project. They have nothing to do with the Highlands, the specific Highlands project that's been in place. It's only about the HATS project.
Okay, so that brings me to my second question, is why did you even bring in the other project to confuse everyone about the difference between that project and the HATS project, if you just kept your presentation
Yeah.
with a recommendation, are you recommending that we say, let's do two?
Well, it's clear by the HATS study alone that none of the HATS alternatives also protect for sea level rise and non-major storm events. The barriers that they're speaking about, talked about alternative 2, for instance, that goes from Sandy Hook across to Long Island. That would only be engaged under the most serious of storm events.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, what is your recommendation? Are you going to recommend to the Corps regarding only the HATS project?
Oh, yeah.
That you're recommending to go with number 2 because it saves the most, not people, but it saves the most money, it saves the most, homes, businesses, and what have you? Okay.
That's correct.
Because that was not stated anywhere in that presentation.
So we provided to the council written comments, right, that are meant to be sent in to the Army Corps. It's a single page. Nancy circulated that to you before the meeting started in a more final version, but you saw this as part of the package, I believe, sent a couple of days ago. And those comments are only and specifically about the HATS project. And that we are asking that they consider either alternative 2 or alternative 3A, right? Both of which would have protection for islands. And we also speak in those comments about the concern that if they do any of the other alternatives, it could actually aggravate things for islands. Because they would actually be closing off part of the northern part of the harbor, where when storm surge comes into the harbor, the water has to go somewhere. And if they're blocking the water from going to the northern location, that excess water has to go somewhere. And that leaves us, at the short end of the stick, so to speak. So those comments that we're asking the council to consider sending to the Army Corps by the March 7th deadline are only about the HATS project. The problem is you can't speak about one without the other, because even the HATS project itself says this serves one purpose, but for communities that have regular flooding that are close to sea level, they need to look at individual localized storm mitigation and sea level rise mitigation. So, they are two different projects, but they're intermingled in terms of how they would function.
Yeah, so as Steve said, the main points we want to make is that we're recommending 2 or 3B or 3A. And the reason is that protects more people, more area than what they're recommending 3B.
And most importantly, it protects us.
Yeah. And then we also want them to look at the cost benefit, because we don't understand how, if you're protecting 96% of the area and you have a case that's protecting only 63, how can that one have a higher benefit than the one that's protecting the larger area? And then we also are concerned about their economic model, where internally they cut off benefit for 50 years. So they start at 0 when the project 3B is done. So the additional years to construct 3A or 2, we feel it's hurting the economics and kind of biasing the economics towards their case 3B. So those are really the recommendations, and as Steve said, we feel 3B could hurt us.
Was there anything presented from HATS about what our local cost would be, our yearly cost would be?
There's none for the HATS project.
Okay, it's a 100% government, federal funding.
Yeah, federal and state.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not funded. Nothing that has to go through Congress.
I'm saying what they're
Yeah, what they're
proposing.
proposing. Right. Yeah, there's no local share to the HATS project at all.
I have an economic question. Speaking of Del Carroll, the maintenance of any of these barriers, who would be responsible to pay for that?
Right. So, on the
And it
HATS
would have to be
project,
maintained.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, for a flood that may
Right.
happen in 50 years, they have to be checked every year or twice a year to be
Absolutely.
sure that they're,
and they,
so who is responsible for that?
yeah, so they actually established what the ongoing operation and maintenance cost would be for whatever project that they're looking at. So, again, to separate the two, the HATS project, that would be all federal and state for operating and maintenance costs. For the localized project that's been spoke about for many years now, those operating and maintenance costs, it was unclear 5 or 6 years ago who would handle that. It's now stated in writing that operation and maintenance costs would be handled by the state.
And where's that information? On the HATS website or how do you know that?
Right, yeah.
It's a letter.
It's a letter that they've sent.
Yeah, the HATS, again, they're two separate programs.
All right, so I want to know where I can find out exactly who's going
We
to,
can get to that reference.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's fairly obvious why they prefer the 3B, because it protects the most people.
Yeah.
And it protects New York City.
Right,
We're, you know,
yes, exactly.
flying in the wind.
Right, but our great concern is, in protecting them, are you going to disproportionately damage us, right? And that's a real concern, because the water's going to find its level, right? We all know that. And if we're closing off a section of where that storm surge would go, that means the balance of that's got to go somewhere else, and that's towards us in that case. So, yeah. And the area, yes, is certainly part of this. The other part, though, is the way in which they calculated that benefit. The shortest term projects, alternatives, take 14 years to build out. So they then decided 14 years will become the base year, and we'll add, from that point, we'll look at 50 years of benefit. The problem is with alternatives 2, which is the largest and most costly, also takes the longest to build. It's 32 years?
32 years.
32 years to build. So that 32 minus 14, subtracted from 50, now our benefit period is only 24 years, you see? And that's where we're concerned that that's skewing the cost-benefit analysis, right? Which is not fair in terms of determining benefit. 50 years is an arbitrary time, right? They didn't build this stuff to only last 50 years. That's ridiculous. You know, a bridge, any bridge, is built for at least 100 years of life. And the same would be true for this. And to arbitrarily look at 50 years and then penalize those projects that take longer to get completed, you've now skewed the economics for those projects that take longer to build.
Do you feel it skews it negatively, or does it necessarily skew it positively? If we're talking about a sense of urgency around sea level rising and climate change, the project that's going to take 32 years leaves your territory exposed for the longest period of time, as opposed to 3B, which is taking, 14 years?
Right.
So you're talking about decades of time that you'll have more protection for the area. And granted, I'm going to give you the given that it's not protecting the highlands with 3B, but I think it's great that we all clarified that there are two different studies here. There's the one that's dedicated to highlands.
Yes.
There's this one that's got options, and the options being at least tentatively chosen with 3B doesn't. But there's also a third study that's out there. I had the pleasure of joining you both on Friday of last week with the, specifically Coastal Storm Risk Management Feasibility Study for Raritan Bay and Sandy Hook Bay. So that's yet another Army Corps effort. Wait, just give me a second.
Yeah.
That is again specifically targeted to benefit highlands. So here's another effort from the Army Corps to take care of us. And we're saying, hey, Army Corps, by the way, we don't like you saving others at a lower cost in a shorter period of time. We'd rather you take a longer period of time, spend more money, because it's leaving us out. Even though you've already allocated $130 million for us, even though you've got another study on the books coming to help highlands too, we want to make sure that we're covered on this one too. I think that that's a little selfish.
Well, listen, there's two things at play here. The HAT study is not going to protect from other than major storm events.
Understood.
Right? The study you're referring to, that we were all on the call on just a couple of days ago, was only about Raritan, Kingsburg, South Amboy, and those are the only areas.
Right, I think we just established that we're very concerned about us, and so I think that that's a good thing, right? We're looking about us.
Sure, but that study, again, has nothing to do with Highlands.
Yeah, I mean,
Zero.
that study, in my mind, that study was doing what we already have in place.
That's
and was
right.
funded for us.
That's right.
They have not had that done yet. So, again, in my perspective, that had nothing to do with the Highlands or protecting us. That was them starting, what we started back in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's yet another Army Corps study about San Jose protecting our territory.
Well, it's protecting their territory, not ours. I mean, it's kind of saying, well, yes, we're in the Raritan Bay, so our study protects, Keyport, Atlantic Highlands,
Yeah, the lower bay that we're saying is going to get left out by choosing the recommended option of the HAT study.
And to the extent Kingsburg and South Amboy and what town am I forgetting in there? Port of Overage, but Lawrence Harbor area, Morgan. That's, as Bob says, they're now working on a study there that they completed here many, many years ago. And to the extent they go forward and put in permanent stormwater protection on their shoreline, to the extent other communities don't along the Bay Shore are going to have even more of an aggravated response, right? Because here again, there's another area where the water can't find its level and it's going to look for the place where it can. So these are all done in some sequence. Together they're stronger. Individually, for those that don't participate, the impacts are worse.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that a non-participation solution is viable, right? We all should be thinking about doing something. I am simply saying that the one that takes the longest, costs the most, and to maintain is going to be the most expensive is probably not necessarily the best.
Well, wouldn't it be good for us to know and hear from Army Corps? And that's what happens, right? We submit these comments with our concerns, and they're going to respond.
I think that's fair to ask for the comments, but I don't think it's necessarily, without having that information, to go ahead and say, and we recommend doing this without having that full information, right? I think that that's a reasonable comment.
Maybe a step.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but they're taking, March 7th is the deadline. So once they get all this information in, they're going to evaluate. And if we say, well, send us more information, then we'll get back to you. They're already going down the road, so it's going to be too late. So I feel we need to, recommend what we feel is best for us. I mean, will that be funded? Maybe not.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you both for all the effort, though. I know that we're throwing a ton of questions, and I know that there's questions.
No, it's important.
Yeah.
We value your questions.
One thing that I want to make clear is that, I understand that you're looking for our support for your recommendation. Even if that does not happen, the EC can still submit these questions. And then once the Army Corps comes back with answers to those questions, we could revisit.
Yeah.
I just want to make that 100%
Okay.
clear.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. We're fine to do that. If the council would rather, not endorse those comments now, we're happy and fine to do that. So,
Yeah, just so that everyone knows that when boards and commissions get together, they give us this advice, and then we can either do a formal resolution to support it, or you guys can just make your, and as you said, for Army Corps, this is very early on in the process.
Yeah.
Because we know that it takes a lot of public engagement and comment, and then answers to those comments
Right.
in order for us to understand something of a magnitude of these billions of dollars that we're talking about as a
Let me just make one other point is that, they're asking for public comment. And that can be the Borough of Highlands, the council here, it can be, you know, any one of you. If you feel strongly about this, that you feel that one of these cases benefits Highlands better than the other, you know, you're free to contact them and give them your comments.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we encourage it.
You know.
We are going to, after the meeting, tomorrow rather, we'll get both the EC's report as well as the HATS, the link to the Army Corps page that it explains in very great detail this entire project and the history of the project. And then it has a link right there where you could add your comments as your business, as your personally, both, for whatever hat you want to wear. Hat.
Very good.
I actually didn't think about that until I did it. But, and with that, does anyone have any questions for, okay, I saw Bob raise his hand first. Is that microphone on?
Yes.
Okay. If you could just go to the podium, give your name and address for the record.
Hi, Bob Davis.
Doesn't sound like something. Green button?
Hi, Bob Davis, 68 South Bay Avenue in Highlands. So my question is if we agree to this HAT study, does that then open the door for them to say, okay, now you agree to what we already decided was a bad idea when we met with this 100 times before and we looked into their recommended wall that was going to take away access to the beaches and the marinas and everything for every reason that people choose to live down by the water. Is that going to then open the door for them to say, okay, well, if you agree to it now, you know, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do the recommended study, which was the wall along the shore and behind the beaches and across the middle of town. I guess another concern with, now that you're mentioning that, with that wall, and you're talking about water seeking its own level, in that study, in their recommended study, that wall goes across the middle of town, and then there's houses like mine down along the water that you're going to put me out in the ocean. Is that not going to make my house several feet deeper underwater if you lock the rest of the, if you put me out in the ocean with this wall? I'm pretty sure it has to, right?
Yeah, so they're both very different projects. They don't.
So that's my question. Is this going to open the door for them to say, because we already told them,
Bob,
we had a lot of meetings.
I can answer that, and the answer is no. We have to sign a contract document,
Okay.
with, New Jersey OEM and with, FEMA.
Okay.
Not FEMA, with Army Corps, in order for that to move forward. And that
Okay.
has not happened. We're still in discussions
Okay.
with, alternatives to walls and people's homes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Greetings, Tom. Jerry Serrano, 1 Cedar Avenue. I've noticed before, and on the screen, and you didn't answer the mayor's question about the 130 million and what's the island's responsibility for this project, and how long will that take?
That is a completely separate project. This is, what he was presenting was HATS, and that's why I mentioned that it's confusing.
I can understand.
So for the HATS project, there is no share for Highlands.
Well, 3A or 3B would be, out of that 130 million, the one that you're proposing, would that be a cost to the islands?
The other study,
Yeah.
yes, there would be a cost to Highlands. And it's all future dollars that we have no, I can't control inflation, but it will be a significant amount of money.
It's a significant amount of money. And if they go with that plan, will they be?
Which is that plan? The HATS plan or the?
No, not the HATS
Okay.
plan. Which I would approve, the HATS plan, because that's, even though it's gonna take forever to do, it's gonna protect more people. But if they do go to the other plan, are they using the same, engineering study and outcome that they had proposed to us before for raising the walls up to, 14 feet, and what levels they were going to be and where they were going to?
Right, it was 14 feet using,
they were
and
gonna put-
AD 88, which is pretty much 2 feet above the Marine Place wall.
And they were gonna put concrete on top of a metal wall?
There were concrete walls in some spots, metal walls in other spots. But we're not here to discuss that
All right, I'm
study,
just
but
asking
we
if that's gonna be the outcome of it. I wanna know later on when it's gonna be, and how will we know about that?
well, like I said, we're still talking about it. There are every day there's a new, flood mitigation system out there. Mr. Cannon put me in touch with, the Director of Public Works in Indiana. They've got a lot of, river flooding, and, I spoke with them for, quite a bit of time. And, over in Manhattan, they're, using the same product, which is a flood break wall, which, it pretty much sits in a pan. You can make them as high or as long as you want. And, when the water comes, it lifts up like this. So currently, when it's down and there's no flood, it's a walkway. So picture, Battery Park and around the east and west sides, where that could be a walkway, but then when floodwaters come up, that comes up. So you're not sitting there staring at a wall, waiting for a 100-year flood, because they're down when they're not in use. So that's what I'm saying. Alternatives like that, we didn't know about 10 years ago.
Right.
They weren't invented yet.
And just one last question.
Sure.
If I remember at one of our meetings we had with this wall, that if we were gonna proceed with it, it would be a ballot initiative, that the people in the town would be voting on it,
That's correct.
just as long as that still stands.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Michael Cannon, 10 Central Ave. Couple of things. On the HAT study, I'm pretty deeply involved in it, so I could answer a lot of questions on it. The alternative 3D, which has the navigation gates across the Kildan Cove and the Arthur Kill, does not go across the Hudson River. That's what alternative 3A does. Alternative 3A does the preliminary modeling, again, it's very early in the study, does cause an increase in water levels into the bay, which is why, as part of that plan, it includes protection to highlands and the Shrewsbury River to offset that potential impact. 3D is not showing that. I mean, it could be if the gate across Jamaica Bay were moved, maybe that would become an issue, because it is showing some increase in water levels over by Breezy Point. But just wanted to clarify, I mean, you can make the comment, but I would suggest you word it as, to verify that there are no impacts if it's not going to be a part of that. With regard to the economics, it's true that the timeline is why you're seeing such low benefits for alternative 2, because it doesn't kick in until, alternative 3A and 4 would be completed in estimated 2044. Now, it would be 2060 something before you would see alternative 2 completed. So, in just doing a present value, $1 today is worth more than $1 10 years from now, is why the benefits reduce, but it also is reducing, in that analysis, reducing the cost, because it's not putting the inflation or the interest on the cost that's invested during that construction period. So it is complicated. There is also an interim report on the Corps website that did it where it took that full 50 years, but their headquarters specifically dictated use of this analysis. I got that comment.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
the other part, the Raritan Bay study that you mentioned, that covers areas that have previously constructed projects, such as Keensburg, where there's the levee system and the gate across Waykay Creek and the project up in Old Bridge. Because they are so old, it's a reevaluation of the projects that were built, back in the 60s or so. So that's what that is taking into account. You know, it didn't have sea level adjustments into those. So it's really a reevaluation of that. And I'll go there with regard to the project in Highlands. I honestly think that as a town, we need to do a lot of hard work to see if we can come up with a solution that meets everyone's needs or best meets everyone's needs. Go to the core and say, a wall here isn't going to work. You need to move it here. You need to change the type of structure that you're proposing. And I think it's a lot of really, really hard work. You mentioned Norfolk. They have hired my firm to support them in working with the Army Corps and bringing their new project forward. That was one of the other 9 focus areas out of the North Atlantic study. So I said it's what I do for a living, so I'm familiar with probably every one of these studies. So I just wanted to clarify a couple of those issues. And if you want, I'm here. I'm around all the time. So
Thank you.
take care.
Thank you.
Come to one of our meetings. Up to 12.
Sure, go
Can I
ahead.
throw in one more?
Go ahead.
Is there any benefit derived during the 14 or 30 years or whatever? Is there a benefit derived during the time of construction?
Well, construction, you know, they're talking about the entire length of the construction period. So sections will be built and put into place and functional before the entire project's done. It's not like they're putting one brick, you know, and just keep running it down a few mile line to build it up. There'll be sections built and put in place.
At the
So,
same time,
yes,
different sections, but
Right.
that might derive some benefit.
right.
And I can add on to that, the schedule of the segments has not been laid out because there isn't an understanding of the hydrologic and hydraulic connectivity,
Right.
which ones have to be built in conjunction with the others. So that whole sequencing hasn't been completed at this point.
And not surprising, these are expensive construction projects, so they want to firm up completely what the plan is before they start putting all the engineering in, right? It's a lot of effort. So we want to get them at this point where we can have some input.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, so we'll close this portion right now. It is. I personally don't feel that we have enough to make a recommendation. I think there's still way too many more questions out there. That's just my personal opinion. Everyone, please vote your warrant, whatever you want to do.
Next, we have resolutions, R-23-067, authorizing retention of Glenn Forney to serve as mediator to facilitate reaching an agreement as to a tax allocation method and sharing of savings from regionalization.
I will offer that.
I'll second.
Councilmember Cervantes?
Yes.
Councilmember Torak?
Yes.
Councilmember Melman?
Before I vote, which I can.
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Few questions on the wording on the resolution. One, I know it's to move forward with mediation on an allocation method and, tax savings, tax sharing or shared savings.
Yes.
So that's that, 50/50 cost, just for
According
short.
to our CFO, the only way that we can raise money for the school is by the tax levy. That's it.
Perfect. So,
There's no secret, separate white envelope that goes under the table.
perfect. And then the language in here that's inviting the boards to join,
Yes,
the agreement will be made between Highlands and Atlantic Highlands only.
we have to get past our differences.
Yes. Who's the mediator mediating between?
Highlands and Atlantic Highlands.
Highlands and Atlantic Highlands.
Yes.
Those are the two voices that have to come together and agree,
Correct.
not the school board.
No,
Perfect. So I'm just curious as to why they're invited to join.
to be gracious.
Okay. I'll be gracious. Yeah.
Thank you.
Council President Olszewski?
Yes.
Mayor Brian?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt resolution R 23067. Next, we have R 23069, amending 2023 temporary budget.
I'll offer it.
I'll second.
Councilmember Cervantes?
Yes.
Councilman Torak?
Yes.
Councilman Melnick?
Yes.
Council President Olszewski?
Yes.
Mayor Brian?
You said 69 and 68.
68.
68.
Mayor Brian?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt resolution R 23068. Next, we have R 23069, accepting recommendations of the Borough of Highlands Environmental Commission in connection with a project known as the New York, New Jersey Harbor and Tributaries Focus Area Feasibility Study by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and authorizing submission of same to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Motion to table that, is that right?
Yep.
Yep.
I will second that motion to table.
Councilmember Cervantes?
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Councilmember Torak?
Yes.
Councilman Melnick?
Yes.
Council President Olszewski? Mayor Brian?
Yes.
Motion carries to table R 23069. Next, we have consent agenda. Mayor, would you like me to read the resolutions by title?
Yes, please.
R 23070, ratifying acceptance of the bid for the sale of Block 47, Lot 10 in the Borough of Highlands, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey. R 23071, appointing a patrolman. R 23072, authorizing shared services agreement between the Borough of Highlands and the Borough of Seabright for street sweeping services. R 23073, approving closeout final charge order and declaring acceptance of the contract for North Street Storm Water Pump Station electrical upgrades. R 23074, authorizing payment of bills. R 23075, cancel tax overpayments. R 23076, authorizing the execution of an interlocal service agreement between the Borough of Highlands and the Borough of Atlantic Highlands for routine mechanical repair and maintenance of Highlands vehicles, equipment, and trucks excluding fire trucks. R 23077, approving request for waiver of alcohol ban for community center rental.
I will offer the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Councilmember Cervantes?
Yes.
Councilmember Torak?
Yes.
Councilman Melnick?
Yes.
Council President Olszewski?
Yes.
Mayor Brian?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt resolutions R 23070 through R 23077. Next, we have mayor's report.
Okay, for construction, the municipal building is ongoing nicely. They are making great progress up there. For the Snug Harbor Park, mulch and playground was completed, 2/24, much to the joy of our children. I got pictures from Jackie here at the Community Center showing them all mobbed all over the playground equipment out there. We have one more piece of apparatus that's going to be coming in, and that should be this spring. Also, our courts should be completed in the spring. Waterwitch Pump Station, many of you have seen the cranes come in and put in the steel framing on February 15th, and then we put the building on top on the 22nd. So that is also going very nicely and should be completed in May. Everly Park was substantially complete on the 27th. So if you've noticed that straw that's on the hill there, that's grass, and that is going to be looking, it really looks gorgeous. They did a very nice job. The skate park, that was started in January and should be done by May also. The large sanitary sewer project that started on January 30th, and they are hoping to get that all done by June. I think that might be wishful thinking, but let's hope they can stick to that schedule. The Bay Avenue EV charging station has been ordered and will be installed by May. Jones Creek, we're still, waiting for that tractor permit from our friends in, Trenton. And the Portland Road guardrail, we are still waiting on the county for that. We have not gone out to bid yet. Where are we, Mr. Matlock, with the reconstruction of Bayside Drive and Lee?
That project was just awarded a grant from the DOT. I actually just submitted a scope of work to your administrator today, and we'll probably get going on that in the near future.
Very good. Regionalization update, now that we have our mediators. We are hoping to meet in March and finally get this resolved, get it on the ballot for November so you can cast your ballots there. Grant and fundings, we're over $261,000. We just received a grant in February, and that is a share of $1.18 million, and that was from the county, Highlands, Bradley Beach, and Homedale. This is from the U.S. Department of Transportation, using $800 million of federal funds. And just to show you how competitive this grant was that was won, we are only one of 510 communities in the country to be awarded this grant. So that's really awesome. It's called the Safe Streets for All. And we are looking to improve signage, sidewalks, especially near the ferry where there's a very big lack of sidewalks, and people have to walk on the street. So that was a really good one. Monmouth Hills, we're still talking. We're talking with everybody, trying to get this in. I know that we put in that grant for FEMA, another $15 million to solve that 100-year-old problem, 100 plus rather. CRS, I spoke with the administrator today, and we're working with the building department on getting all of the documentation going, building and zoning. We have to gather elevation certificates for all the properties in the floodplain. We're doing that while we wait for Region 2 Management and Insurance Branch to complete a compliance audit for town. And that's my report.
The only other thing I really have to add is in next week or so, we're going to be sending out an RFP for garbage and recycling. Our current contract is up. We're going to have a couple of different Section A and Section B. A basically is to replicate what we have right now, and the second option is going to be for increased recycling pickups. It should be finished and up probably in the next week or so.
Very good. Go ahead.
About the schools, I'll start with Henry Hudson Regional. First of all 3 schools have declared March to be the Music in Our Schools month. Many thanks due to Paul Spano, who as of July has become the supervisor of facilities and grounds for the Tri-District, because apparently on February 4th, it proved to be a test of all his assets, because there was a big leak in the elementary school. And after he and the crew took care of that, just on a hunch, he went up to the high school where he found an even bigger pipe burst. And they were able to get, that was a Saturday that all this was going on, and thank God they were able to get everything under control so that they could have school on Monday. Significant, I was concerned at the high school, significant student suspensions at Henry Hudson in January. 4 students incurred between 3 and 5 days of suspension for insubordination, fighting a weapon, and profanity and obscene language. I asked about it, and it's something that they're working on, but it's concerning. Henry Hudson Regional is going to upgrade its website, which is a really good thing. They will have a summer program again this year, and they intend to integrate some of it with upper elementary students to better connect. A new director of curriculum and instruction is on board, and they are interviewing candidates for a new director of special instruction, both of whom left this year. A lot is going on with their TV studio production. They have the new principal spoke out at the meeting. He has a lot of plans. I took the opportunity personally to stress the need for them to record their meetings and get them up on websites, because it's a lot of information that doesn't get home. Don't depend on your kids to bring home the information that's going on in school. Your kids won't know the level of information that you can gain by attending the meetings. And a member of the board volunteered that why can't these kids who are taking a TV production course, why can't they be part of the program for them to come in and record the meetings and get them ready to put up. So at the Highlands Elementary School, enrollment now stands at 167. The largest class is grade 4 with 31 kids, and the smallest is grade 1 with 13. The PTO has been very busy. They had a dance for the kids. They're having their Tricky Tray auction on March 31st. There's a sip and paint, bring your own scheduled for March 4th. Individual students and staff were honored as part of their SOAR program, and they got $1.77 million in grant funds this year, which they are using to address various issues within the building. They will again have a summer program, which will be held for 4 hours a day for a total of 18 days between July 5th and August 5th. I also took the opportunity to tell them, please, record your meetings and get them up, because their meetings are at 6 o'clock. That's a hard time for, especially people with families. That would be everybody who's in their school to get a grasp, to have the chance to get out and attend the meeting. And that's about it.
Just really one quick thing, tacking on to the summer fields, March 1st. So summer camp registration opens March 11th for residents and employees, and it goes from July 5th to August 11th. And the cost is for a child for 6 weeks, $120. If you want to feed that child for breakfast and lunch, that goes to $270 for that 6 week period. So get in, get off, and it's March 11th. See you here.
Okay.
Just a couple of things. I just noticed that I need glasses, or these letters are too small. But visual improvement, we have the new sign coming up, which is about to be installed for $3,000. That's a lot of money. But total cost of that will be $34,000 coming up.
And that's HPP is being that, correct?
Yes. We just had the chili cook-off. It was a great success. I don't know if the place was kind of small or the event was unbelievable, but it was kind of tight, but it was a beautiful event this past Sunday. And we had the performers from Middlesex County, the pipe band. It was great, a lot of fun. This coming Saturday, March 4th, we have the 10th annual Guinness Run. You pay $40. You get a T-shirt. You're gonna, we get make a lot of fun. For more information, you can go online to www.highlands.nj.com. Also, we have coming up on the 19th our annual St. Patrick's Parade, Saturday, March 18th. We're gonna make it a lot of fun, right? It's gonna be the largest one, as far as I know. Last year we had 102 units. This time we'll have 120 people participating.
And people are still coming in.
Yeah, it's getting bigger and bigger. Other than that, please attend the events. A lot of information, like I said, on the website. And let's support the town. Thank you.
Okay. I have something real quick. I have a Zoom meeting this week with BOEM, that's the Bureau of Energy Management, regarding the offshore windmills that they want to build, which ties into all the dead whales. And just recently, this last week, 2 or 3 dolphins off of Sandy Hook are dying. So I've been doing some research on that to find out what's going on. And it's interesting to know that NOAA and some of the government organizations claim that the sounds that they're making to find these places where they would put the windmills aren't affecting the whales, the death of the whales, and yet there's no proof that they aren't. They just say, no, you're not doing that. It can't be. So I'm just trying to find out what's going on with that.
What I can do is one of our residents works for Noah, she's a biologist, and I'll put, and she was from Quantum. So, I'll put you guys together. Good. Okay, good. Because I know, I see the same thing. There's a lot of chatter about, oh, it's the pre-work, and then on the other side, there's no evidence.
No.
So there's no evidence on either side, so
I know.
I'd be interested to see what a real biologist is gonna weigh in on it, and she works. But, yeah,
Great, sounds good.
do you have anything to add, sir?
No, actually, I think you covered, most of my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, nothing else.
Okay. Do I need the public portion?
Individuals wishing to address the council may be recognized by the presiding officer and shall give their name, address, and the group that they represent. Although the council encourages public participation, it reserves the right, through its presiding officer, to terminate remarks to and/or by any individual not in keeping with the conduct of a proper and efficient meeting. If any individual refuses to conduct themselves in a proper manner, they will be removed from the meeting. The council will not, during the public portion of the meeting, discuss matters involving employment, appointments, termination of employment, negotiations, terms and conditions of employment, evaluation of the performance of, promotion or discipline of any specific or prospective or current employee. There's a 3-minute time limit for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Doug Healy. Address is 23 Central Avenue. The skateboard park's in my living room. Literally, it's 18 inches from the skateboard park where my living room is. So, I'm here, asked to be here, to submit a report on the decimal sounds, the levels on them. I can tell you where my house is and where my apartment is. It's about 4 times the legal limit. May I approach?
You guys have to share, only have 6, sorry.
I'll cut right to the chase. I have it the worst where the skateboard park is. And so I actually met with Don 2 weeks ago. And Don's like, I'd like to see a report on it. And we did a report. Well, I didn't do it. The engineering environmental engineering company did it. Apologize about my voice. But if you flip to the page where I have it right there, where the post-it is, okay, based on the model and the exact lot size and everything, this is a big concern. Because you build a skateboard park, you're gonna have to rip it down because it's gonna be over the legal limit. This is the legal limit set by New Jersey DEP. I advise you to reach out to Gene and reach out to him quickly and talk about this. I'd be willing to work with you to find another location within the town of Highlands. It's bothersome to me because I was never notified, as a homeowner, the past 16 years, I was never notified. I was told, oh, it's on Facebook. Never where I've owned a property where I was never notified by the town of construction going on, right next door to my house. I know I got a short amount of time here, but this report, don't push it aside, look at it, read it, it's a big concern. Any questions?
Gotta read the
Go ahead, Tom. I certainly appreciate your time and definitely understand your concerns.
Okay.
You read through the entire report.
No, I just jumped right to the one page, the summary page.
I'd recommend you go to page 22 where it talks about mitigation and how to mitigate it. If they didn't, in one of their examples, or at least this study or this organization at least, when they're talking about how to mitigate sound, they talk about putting up 2.5 meter plywood fence, not ripping down a. All I'm trying to say is like, I think that what we discussed when we met was, there are probably some common sense things that we can do to mitigate the sound. And I think it's also important to read here too, that in this study itself, that you guys commissioned, it also says these are estimates and that there is no accurate reading.
I can tell you from my past experience, I'm calling the Highlands Police Department, summer 2014. I find garbage being thrown over my fence.
100% unacceptable. 100% unacceptable. Bad neighbors, bad behavior should never be tolerated.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be subjected to it. Nobody should be sticking fingers through fences. Nobody should be throwing beer bottles or any kind of garbage into your property. People should be respectful. People should be aware that there's
Be mindful. Yeah.
But like, that doesn't necessarily relate directly to the skate park any more so than it does the basketball court or the tennis court or the beach, right? Like, somebody could throw garbage for any number of reasons. The noise, let's just,
Focus back to the noise.
Focus on the noise. And I just want to also say that the study doesn't really even call out like how many skateboards were involved in their estimates. So like, at the end of the day, I think we should be doing something.
Thank you.
Put a barrier up to make sure that there is some sort of noise
Well,
mitigation.
would you ever consider a different location?
I feel, and that's just
I reached out, if I may, I reached out to Mike 3 times, left him a couple voice messages. He never returned my call. Sorry, pal, you didn't. And that was back in January, before he started like really digging into the construction.
So, all I'll say, I'll repeat what I said when I met with you guys. I think it was a skate park. I know it was a skate park. It
wasn't a permanent skate park. It was a parking lot with movable ramps.
As Mr. Adams pointed out, it's been a skate park since 2002, and so what we're doing is replacing rusty.
Well, when they Clam Fest, don't they have a carnival out there too?
All I'm trying to highlight is, you know, what he told me in front of all of us, right? Like 2002, the skate park was there. We're replacing rusty equipment with.
And you're doing permanent construction.
Permanent construction, which would absorb sound much better than the tin drums that people have been rolling their skateboards across at this point in time. So like, in terms of, is this a good location? It's been a skate park, and that's all I'm trying to say. And I think that people should be respectful of your property and should not be subjecting you to noise after hours or garbage in the backyard. Absolutely not. And that's an enforcement issue that we should absolutely be paying attention to.
If you could just really take a look at that, and, you know, it's a concern, because.
Yeah, and I did take a look at it ahead of time, so
Thank you.
I think it's very understandable that it's an issue for you and the neighbors.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Sure.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Tina Kemmer, 164 Linden Avenue. I just wanted to ask a question about the, I guess has to do with the recycling and the budgeting that you had mentioned. If you could just explain, are we recommending one way or the other with the enhanced recycling schedule versus what we have now that currently isn't sufficient? Or are you waiting for the bids to come back and to see is it within scope or so?
Yeah, we're looking for different options. One is what we have right now.
Which doesn't seem to be working, in my opinion, because of the amount of refuse that we're getting now.
And we're doing other options for additional pickups.
We're talking about for recyclables. Okay.
One of the things that we're hearing back is we're looking at probably about $100,000 increase a year just for what we have. But we haven't gotten it out yet. We haven't received anything back yet. To replicate what we do now.
Right. Is that what we're talking about with the amendment to the resolution, budget amendment? There's $100,000 for contractual sanitation. That's separate. This would be in addition to.
Yes.
Right.
We're asking for different options. You know, it's still in draft form for the QPA, but I'm going to send it if you want to take a look at it.
Sure. You know, I know that there's a budgetary increase, but, you know, obviously this is something that we probably have to plan and look ahead, because this is now what's happening, is that we're just getting more and more, you know, deliveries and box refuse, you know, just garbage like that, recycling. So it just seems to be something that's not going to go away. And do we have a deadline for that?
The current contract is over around, I believe it's May 1st.
Okay.
And so if we get it out next week, give it a couple of weeks to get back.
I see.
All plenty of time.
Okay. And just one last question with the budget amendment. I saw a number there for condominium services of 9,125. I was just curious what that was for. Is that for?
There's a state law where condominium complexes are allowed to be reimbursed for certain.
Oh, for certain like lighting and so forth. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good evening, I'm Doug Davis, I'm at 17 Central Avenue. I've been in touch with the council members and mayor about the skate park myself since January of last year, 2022. And I raised some concerns about the just the proximity of the park to my own property and the property of my neighbors. And there's currently a 10-foot fence, which is not a noise mitigating fence, but there's a 10-foot fence next to the basketball court with a small corridor of a privacy or buffer area between the neighbors, the residents' fences and that court. And this is my first time in a meeting because the folks I've been in touch with have all been very responsive and it's been an amicable conversation. I have a lot of concerns about noise, about the interaction of the participants in all the park's activities through my fence with my family and my dogs. That's all covered in some extent by the agreements that we had, that I thought we had about putting in that buffer area. The gentlemen who are working in the park right now, the construction folks, we're standing with their feet at about 5 feet, about 6.5 feet from my fence, talking to me this morning. And they mentioned that there is absolutely no possibility of a privacy fence at this point because the concrete is being poured 6 feet away from our actual fence boundary, which means that the privacy area that we discussed is not going to happen. They're backfilling part of that with dirt, which means that the 6-foot fence that I currently have is going to be only about 4 feet on that side. If they continue to fill it up to where they were going to, it would be about 1.5 feet. And the privacy mitigation, the noise mitigation barrier that was in Mr. Healy's study would have to then be a 10-foot wall that is built exactly on my property line, which no longer gives me that 6 feet or a privacy zone or anything except for perhaps either a plywood wall or a chain link fence that's 10 feet tall with some maybe noise barriers or something, whatever the technology is that's available. So I'm concerned because my study was talking to a human being standing on a 5-foot platform looking into my yard saying, yeah, I can see everything from here. And they're nice guys. They're doing a good job. I think this would be a very cool project if it weren't right across from my fence. And now that I'm sharing a fence, not seeing the fence, I'm very concerned about that. And I'm hoping, because the concrete has not been poured, that it's not too late to buy back 2 feet and maybe extend that 10-foot chain link fence that's on the basketball court the length of this new park and make it look like one continuous park so that it looks like a nice plan. It's attractive, it's easily maintained because it can be mowed between, and it stops the direct interaction where I could literally high-five the construction workers across the fence when I say good morning to them every morning. And that noise, okay, but I'm really worried about the future interactions because there is no practical way to build that barrier now other than to put it in my yard as part of my own property line. And I appreciate that that would be addressed and that it would be made known to me and my immediate neighbors how that's going to be addressed, because the promises I've got so far were well received and I felt heard. I'm looking at the practice, the action, and right now there's a concrete structure being built in that space that I was promised was going to be a privacy buffer zone. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Hi, good evening. My name is Gina Melnick. I live at E5 Hillside Court. I'm usually not able to be here on Wednesdays, so it's a delight to see you and everybody who's here being involved in the community, so thank you. I'm probably telling you something or things that you already know, so forgive me. But I just wanted to say what I said at the Atlantic Highlands Council meeting. regarding regionalization. I was really surprised as a taxpayer and a resident and a parent and a former elementary school board member to see the action that the three boards took in saying that they first want to really pursue regionalization between Atlantic Highlands and Highlands that does not include Seabright. And my main message to the Atlantic Highlands Council, and it's my message to you as you go into this mediation, is that if the recommendations that seem to be made by the Board of Ed, which the Atlantic Highlands Council took the extraordinary step of endorsing through a resolution at their meeting, if they take the recommendation, which is to have the apportionment based 100% on equalization and nothing to do with student population, Highlands is really going to get the short end of the stick, and probably will turn into the next Seabright, and will be where Seabright is in 10 years, asking ourselves, how did we get into this? The idea that almost twice as many students go to the elementary schools from Atlantic Highlands as Highlands, but the council and Board of Ed from Atlantic Highlands don't believe that that should be part of the equation is crazy to me. And the superintendent of the Tri-District has said over and over again that the only apportionment method that is acceptable to the Board of Education, and the superintendent also publicly claims over and over that is up to the Board of Ed and not the municipalities to determine the apportionment method. It seems like things are heading in the wrong direction when they just are heading in the right direction. So I want to thank you and applaud you for sticking with what is best for Highlands. I think that anybody who's been following regionalization knows that the tax savings almost primarily comes from Seabright. And without the right equalization method, we're going to end up spending more money, sending fewer kids to our school district. And I want to repeat for anyone out there who's listening or anybody who's just sitting here, the plan, which will be determined by the Boards of Ed, the plan is not to put our students all together in the same schools. So there's going to be absolutely no change. There's going to be absolutely no difference. The differences in performance we've had will probably continue to linger because as much as the boards claim that we have the same curriculum and execution of that, we don't even have the same schedule. Atlantic Highlands works on a trimester and the elementary school here works on a quarterly year. So please continue to be diligent, do what is best for the Highlands taxpayers and parents, and most importantly, the students of Highlands, because continuing what we've been doing so far, just in the interest of providing the people of Atlantic Highlands more tax savings while they send more of their students to our schools, just doesn't make sense to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now close public portion.
Executive session. Executive session will be held following the regular council meeting. Prior to each executive session, the Borough Council will convene an open session, at which time a resolution will be adopted in accordance with NJSA 10:4-13. No formal action will be taken during executive session. Resolution to enter executive session. Be it resolved that the following portion of this meeting shall not be open to the public. Be it further resolved that private consideration is deemed required and is permitted because of the following noted exceptions set forth in the Act: attorney-client privilege, electric vehicle and solar ordinance, pending or anticipated litigation. Be it further resolved that it is anticipated that the matters to be considered in private may be disclosed to the public at a later date when the need for privacy no longer exists.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Councilmember Cervantes?
Yes.
Councilmember Toret?
Yes.
Councilmember Melnick?
Yes.
Council President Chesky?
Yes.
Mayor Brian?
Yes.
Motion carries to enter executive session at 8:48.
Yeah.
Also motion to adjourn second public meeting.
All in favor?
Yes, aye.
Meeting adjourned at 9:10. Thank you, everyone.
Wow, 2 hours. It's been a long time since we. I know, we got spoiled.